Yes, so we have in studio, as we mentioned before, the man of the hour, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzil Douglas, who is going to speak to us and give us his take on the state of affairs currently happening in the country with all of this new political unrest, as I can say. But yes, good morning. Let me just get your mic up. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Ready?
Yes. Good morning.
Yes, the headphones.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, my dear. Good morning. Good morning to all.
How are you this morning?
I am fine.
Oh boy, are you ready for this? I know the people are, they have been waiting for you.
Ready for this? Sounds like a marathon I'm about to run.
Oh no, definitely not. Definitely not. But let's just jump right into it as we are pressed for time today.
Yes.
How would you describe the political climate as it stands?
The
Yes, thank you.
Right. The situation really is at a crisis point, but with the delivery of the motion of no confidence yesterday, at least it seemed to point us into a direction and maybe solution or a near end to the crisis. Crisis of governance in the sense that the parliament, it would appear, will only now meet for the hearing of a motion of no confidence in the government. The cabinet is not meeting, and that is critically important. And so the whole governance agenda that would be expected through the constitution of our country, I think, is at the crisis point. And in a situation like that, what is required here is an early solution to the problem so that we can get back to a state of normalcy. I think we are in a state of instability, uncertainty, and we need to get that corrected as quickly as possible, not only for the benefit of those
Sorry, go ahead.
residents here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I really think that the matter is at a crisis situation.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel now that basically most or some of what you spoke about in leading up to the 2015 election is basically unfolding?
Yes.
In terms of the challenges that you faced with Dr. Harris being a member of your cabinet?
Right. The situation is somewhat similar and at the same time it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It was a situation where the cabinet met every single Monday or when it was necessary to meet an emergency or otherwise. The parliament also met very, very often. The parliamentary agenda was not interrupted at all at any one time. The difficulty of having the motion of no confidence heard, and that, of course, was a significant development at that time. But we were to meet in the cabinet, we were able to go to the parliament, we debated, and we took very, very strong decisions. In fact, I said in an earlier interview I had last week that within a period of about 3 years, 2012 to 2015, once the government had settled down, once I had dismissed Dr. Harris from the cabinet and Sam Conda joined him, the government settled down in terms of doing the work of the people. A lot of the issues we had of leaking of information from the cabinet and continuing to the back talk outside and at the same time coming into the cabinet room. Once I took care of that, then of course we had settled down. The situation here is different because the cabinet is not functioning.
Right.
The parliament, it would appear, would not have been able to meet, except now a motion has been triggered. It may then begin to meet. But it could not meet otherwise because the members of the cabinet, who are all members of parliament, had written to His Excellency the Governor General and informed him that something is amiss in your government, in the sense that we no longer support the Prime Minister who you appointed back in 2020 after the January 2020 election.
But let me ask you this. Issues raised by Pam and CCM related to governance, review of the financial position of the government, they're talking about the distribution of CBI funds and allocation of support in terms of the different social assistance programs. What are your thoughts on the current public approach to discussing these issues and what impact it is having on the country?
Right. Firstly, I'm a little amazed that the members are saying that information was not and is not being brought to them as members of cabinet and as ministers of government. I know that the PM has countered by saying, well, the budget process, the budget outlines what's going on and so forth. Right. And that is true, but at the same time, the budget process takes place once per year. And members are saying, well, okay, we need to have continuing updates as to what is happening. And because we are in a pandemic situation, which in itself presented its own crisis, of course, it is important that they be updated on a regular and frequent basis as to where we are on that original agenda that was set out when the budget would have been passed back in December of 2021. So the CBI funds and so forth that you mentioned, I believe that, again, that should be a matter that if the members of the cabinet wish to get that information, they should. Right. Because, again, I emphasize, we're in a crisis situation, a pandemic situation. The radar is moving every day, every week, every month. And so regular updates, I think, is an ordinary and normal request to be made by the ministers of the cabinet. Now, in terms of how would one really try to overcome those issues, I think it should be important to emphasize that maybe frequent, regular updates on the economic and financial situation, on the financial situation in particular in this case, should be given. Because you would have set out certain specific social and economic development programs, especially the social programs. They have been set out in your budget in 2021. The new year starts, you're still in a crisis, a pandemic crisis. I think it is important that you make adjustments in terms of the availability of funds to either implement or delay certain of the specific programs and projects that you would have set for yourselves. I think it is an ongoing dynamic situation given the overall environment in which we are living today. And I think it is important for the members to frequently get that information so that they can know, well, okay, you had said you're going to build a police station in Conway. Is it possible that we can still do it? Is it that the situation financially has improved so that the funds are now available? And that is why the CBI funds are so critical, because the CBI funds would have appeared in the budget to be one of the backbone for the financial implementation of financial support of implementing a number of projects that would have been identified in the budget.
So, Dr. Douglas, I'm curious, with the filing of the motion of no confidence, Was the Labour Party in support of this? Did you guys have an input? Did they consult with you guys before this filing?
No consultation, as far as I'm aware, with the parliamentary opposition group. I am not aware that my colleague, the Dr. Honorable Jeffrey Handy for number one, constituent one, was consulted. I was not consulted, but I am aware from what has been appearing in the media that there must have been some form of contemplation of having the motion. In fact, we were being asked casually, well, why are you not bringing the motion, meaning we in the opposition?
Yes.
And we keep saying, well, we're observing the situation, because what is the point of bringing a motion that may not be supported? Don't forget, in December of 2020, 6 months after the elections, I brought a motion of no confidence in the government.
Yes.
Don't forget that.
Yes.
So it is something that we felt was absolutely necessary then, because we were of the opinion that even though things appeared cozy and rosy,
You had a general idea.
yeah, that's right. And I said, let us give them the opportunity. That is the members of government who had a problem. Let us give them the opportunity to see if they would respond to correct the situation at this particular time. But it was knocked down.
But let me ask you this. In 2013, a motion of no confidence was filed against the Labour Party. I think that was by the leadership of Mark Brantley.
Right.
Now, today's announcement is expected to be a second motion of no confidence in just 3 election cycles. What do these political maneuverings say about the leadership of the country, in your opinion?
Right. If you file a motion of no confidence, when it was filed, I should say against my government, we knew that it was full collaboration between Harris, the Prime Minister, and the present Premier of Nevis, who was then the leader of the opposition.
Right.
And that is one of the reasons why Harris got fired, because, in my opinion, he misled the cabinet. Don't want to say anything stronger than that. He misled the cabinet because he knew about the motion. We understand afterwards that he was one of the framers of the motion. And so we felt that, well, how could you do that and you're sitting here? You know, it means that you have to declare where you are, and so that's one of the reasons why I was prompted to dismiss him. The motion then, a number of things were cited in the preamble of the motion. I do not know specifically the contents of the motion that has been lodged with the clerk of the House.
Today.
I don't think it's been made public as yet.
No.
Maybe today, in the next few minutes, it will. And it would be good for us to hear while we're still here, if we are still here, what exactly are the contents. But in my case, it appeared to be very frivolous. Like, one of the things that was said is that I said I was going to sell a man. You know, that kind of nonsense. You know, because, so, but here, that is why it's difficult for me to comment, because I don't know the content. But if you were to listen to what has been out there and what the men have been saying, that is cabinet colleagues have been saying, you get a feeling that a lot of the issues that came up now are issues which I cited in December of 2020, and some of which I think could have been alluded to back in 2011. It was 2011 when that motion was initially and originally filed.
So, Dr. Douglas, I'm pretty sure, just like most of us, you have read the very long 18-page letter and the responses. How did you feel about the responses, especially to the questions posed?
Well, from the nature of the responses, that confirmed in my mind that there would really be no success in bridging the divide. The healing was not going to take place with that kind of back and forth. I think the Prime Minister attempted to respond to each of those issues raised. In some instances, the Prime Minister tried to show that the writers of the two members who wrote the letter, like, ridicule them, you know. And basically, from the responses from the Prime Minister, as I said, it didn't leave any room for further negotiation. And so I recognize that maybe the motion would have had either the motion called or the cabinet would resign.
Now, if I may, now perhaps this may be a question for Dr. Joy as the leader of the party, but can you say if the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party would be open to forming the next government with Dr. Harris and his People's Labour Party? Because looking at the dynamics now and how the seats will be allocated in terms of what Labour would get, what PAM would get, what PLP would get here on St. Kitts, would the Labour Party would be open to joining with PLP?
And I think your preface to the question is important. I'm not the leader of the party, and I support my leader, definitely. But of course, a decision of this kind would have to be discussed at great length. From where I'm not aware that the party has taken any formal position on this. I said again in a previous more than one announcements before or statements before that the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party is 90 years old. It is the most senior leading political institution in the Eastern Caribbean, maybe the whole Caribbean region.
Yes.
Right? Because I think we're the oldest party. And the party, therefore, must be very conscious of the changes that are being made in the electorate in terms of their thinking and also in the country and the participation of people in our democratic process. So I am not going to say that the party cannot and would not. I did it myself. Remember, back in 2010, in that election of 2010, I reached across to Nevis, and I invited the Patrice Nisbet, who was elected for the NRP, invited him to become Attorney General, and eventually he also became the Foreign Minister and Minister of International Trade, etc. But at that time, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party formed the government on its own. We had 6 seats of the 11 elected representatives, and we formed government. The governor asked us to form a government. We did, and we invited Patrice. NRP. Remember, the NRP was created specifically to oppose the Labour Party and its government.
Yes.
Specifically for that. But I felt that we had reached a level of maturity, not convenience, but maturity, where we could work with each other in advancing the country and its agenda in moving forward.
Well, Dr. Douglas, in the interest of time, because we have things happening today.
Yes.
very soon, I must add. But who ultimately benefits most from this move, this current move, and who do you think, in your opinion, stands to lose the most?
The electorate benefits. Citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis would benefit most, because the citizens have been told this government is not functioning, and it cannot function with what we have seen in terms of the dialogue between the Prime Minister and the other members. So the citizens and the residents of St. Kitts and Nevis would be the beneficiary of this exercise, in the sense that it would bring an opportunity for a new government to be identified. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party expects to be that government, either by itself or inviting others to be part of it, given the scenario I painted earlier.
Yes.
So the citizens, because the citizens have been told, this structure you gave us in 2020 can't work. We are not getting along, and we are not going to get along. Therefore, give us a new opportunity to create a government that will look after your interest, the interest of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Now, as we begin to wrap up this discussion, do you think if Dr. Harris and Sam Conda stayed with Labour that Labour would have won the 2015 general elections?
Of course, by far. You see, Harris wanted to become the Prime Minister at any cost. Wanted to become the Prime Minister. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not going to in any way throw cold water on anyone's ambition. And you have a right to aspire to be the Prime Minister.
Yes.
That is the nature of our democracy. And we have provided the environment for that to be attained.
Right.
It's your right. And so he has the right to. But I don't think it was the right way to go about that. I couldn't hand over the leadership of a government to someone when the Constitution is very clear as to how the leader of the party is determined and then how the leader would lead the party into an election to become a prime minister eventually. So I really think that it was a scheme on the part of the participants to bring Labour down. Now, people say to bring Douglas down, but Douglas is not Labour. You understand? I'm still.
I may have been the members of the party.
Right. I might have been a strong leader, but I am not the party. The party is the party. And so in bringing the party down and thus removing the Labour government, I think the electorate did not benefit from that as individual members who orchestrated it, as we're now hearing, benefited. That's the whole point. And that is why Labour needs to be there again. The was interrupted unnecessarily. We don't want that. Harris, of course, I had seen Harris as a potential leader. It's just timing and the way you do it.
Right.
A lot of the things that we're hearing today, what I experienced. But show out on that. We are beyond that.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that they start to bring down the party by bringing you down. And do you think that that's repeating itself? Because by filing the motion of no confidence currently, that means that they're saying as well that we no longer have confidence in the government that we formed.
That's it. That's it. You see, the parliament during the 2011-2012 situation, it was the parliament that was making that declaration. But the government was functioning. Cabinet was functioning. A lot of what you would have heard was absolute untruth. A lot of it was untruth. There was democracy alive within the party and within the cabinet and within the government. There were certain things that I might have done. For example, as I said, the delay of the hearing of the motion of no confidence. I think that was one of the things that maybe I was ill-advised upon. But it has been corrected.
Yes.
The news to ensure that that doesn't happen was created by Harris. The same news that is going to have him hear that motion. The bill that says it must be heard in 21 days.
I saw it last night.
Yes, I actually have a follow-up
In 21 days. It has to be heard within 21 days. What I was being advised at that time was that the Constitution was specific in that it said, generally, however, that the motion must be heard as quickly as possible. And as quickly as possible was not immediate in terms of our interpretation.
Could mean anything.
Anything.
Yes.
And then remember what happened. It first came, it was a motion against the Prime Minister. The Speaker rejected it and said that is not right. The Constitution doesn't speak of a motion against the Prime Minister. And so you need to correct this. And so it was sent back, and then it came, said the Prime Minister and his government. That was acceptable. And then there was the budget to be heard. I said, well, listen, the budget is, more, in my opinion, was more important than this because it came on the calendar of the parliament before. And so we heard the budget. And while we were hearing the budget, waiting to hear the budget, then there was a filing in the court. And so the speaker said, and I supported the speaker and his position, and the attorney general advised, well, hear what the court has to say about this matter before just bringing it into the parliament.
Yes.
And that took a longer time. And so the delay continued until eventually I called the election without having the motion being heard.
Well, speaking of election, what are your predictions if an election is called in the next 3 months? Who do you think, in your opinion, would win and what combination?
I expect that the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party should win the election. Okay? And again, I believe that we can get a clear majority. Okay? I don't want to give the specificity in terms of the outcome of each constituency, mainly because the election is not yet called, and mainly because a lot of dynamics are still at play here. And so we have to wait and see how the dynamics play out. For example, I believe that people are still looking for candidates, to be looking for candidates now, and then for me to say that I predict that this is what will happen, because we don't know who the candidates will be against the Labour Party. But the Labour Party has done what it should have done. It prepared itself. Remember, we went through a process, an exercise of renewal from within. We rebranded, we restructured the leadership of the party. We made sure that a new leader emerged, whom we all support. And we hope that this new leader would lead us into the victory. We have new candidates. I am still there, but a veteran is there. I don't know. You need a veteran sometime. And so,
we have a question coming in here. It says, a situation where the majority of cabinet loses confidence in the Prime Minister is not strange.
Yes.
But in other cases, namely England, the Prime Minister is expected to resign. Why do you feel that convention was not adhered to here, where Dr. Harris, his cabinet lost confidence in him,
right,
and instead of him resigning, this happened?
Right. And that's a very, very important question, because we ourselves have been looking at the path that has been taken by the cabinet members who are against the Prime Minister at this time. And maybe if I were in the Prime Minister's shoes, if my cabinet, remember, I made a distinction between the cabinet and the Parliament all the time. Because if my cabinet was saying to me, why, Douglas, we really don't support you, you should go, you know, I mean, and this would have been expressed in his case. You know, I would have probably resigned.
Yeah.
You know, but we are two different persons. The Parliament is what was expressing the view that it has lost confidence in the government. But here, the members of the government, the cabinet, in majority are saying, and they wrote to His Excellency. His Excellency is the head of Parliament, is head of government.
Right.
Well, not head of government,
Head
head
of
of state. And so he has certain controlling or reciprocated jobs to do as a result of that position. And here is the cabinet saying, well, we can't work with this gentleman anymore. I mean, this is a serious indictment against Harris, and that is against, the Prime Minister. And that is why I don't want to say much more about that, in the sense that I don't know the reasons that have been cited in the resolution that will come for debate.
Right.
But we know what has been said out there. And if the cabinet, if a member of the cabinet is telling you that I have not been to cabinet now for about 4 months, and the cabinet doesn't appear to be meeting frequently, that is a serious situation. And maybe one of the options of the Prime Minister, yes, was to resign. and allow that
Transition.
to take place.
Well, Dr. Douglas, we have to wrap up, but just one last question. What would you like to see? What outcome would you like to see coming out of this upcoming announcement?
Right. I expect that the members who will make the announcement in a few minutes, or if they have not done it, will be given specifically the reasons as documented in the motion. Because that would be what I would go into the parliament to debate. What is it that is so grave against you, the head of the cabinet committee, your prime minister, that you couldn't resolve but needed to have a new election to resolve this issue? So I'm very much interested in knowing what it is that has been so great. But not only reading the motion, but to a large extent as well, hearing the debate in the National Assembly to bring supportive arguments in terms of the reasons that are being given for lodging this motion in the House against the Prime Minister. Reasons for saying we have lost total confidence in this Prime Minister. We cannot resolve our issues. Only the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, the electorate, can resolve these issues.
Yes. Well,
All right.
Listen, you've said a mouthful today, and I'm sure the people listening were waiting to hear your views, because we feel like usually these things happen with an opposition and a sitting government.
Right.
But now we've seen the dynamic change, and it is taking all of us by surprise, to be quite honest.
Right.
Well, all of us who are on the outside of the political arena.
Yes.
But Dr. Douglas, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back, because we sure you guys have lots to say about the upcoming announcement as well as the developments that are going to be taking place over the next couple of months leading up to whatever the outcome may be. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
All right. Thanks again, and thanks to the listening public. Thank you.
All right. You're
All right.
welcome.
Well, Devon, there you have it. There you have it. In a few minutes, we are going to hear from